Hello again. My name is Anna. I'm the clinical specialist from Sensing Future. I want to start by thanking you for attending and to be here with us. I think we can start with the presentation. Today's webinar is going to be related with age-related balance changes and fall risk assessment. So the title is The Science of Balance and Fall Prevention. And to give you a bit of context, we are seeing, and this is something that is very clear for the past years, we are seeing a demographic shift as the population, the older population is growing in number. So we have some numbers that tells us that in the year 2022, almost 10% of the world population was already over 65 years old, and this is going to keep increasing. This increase in longevity is probably due to healthcare measures, of course, and medical advances, but it also brings new challenges to the healthcare systems that have to adapt to meet the needs of an older population. Okay, so let's just move on. This brings us to two very important concepts, because as life expectancy increases, a very important issue arises. So it's the challenge of maintaining quality of life in older people. With the increased longevity, it's not only about living more years, but also having more quality and living those years with health. And so this is intimately related with healthy aging or health longevity and functional ability. Okay, so the World Health Organization describes healthy aging about creating the environments and the opportunities that enable people to be and do what they value through their lives. So it's the ability for older people to participate in life, in society, to do and to participate as they wish and as they like. And of course, this is very dependent on functional ability. So the ability to perform daily activities that are necessary for autonomous living, which of course are dependent on a lot of intrinsic factors such as muscle strength, cognitive functions, balance, memory, but also on extrinsic factors on the environment. And we know that one of the things that poses higher greatest risks to quality of life in older people, and that can influence this functional ability and quality of life, are falls. Okay, so falls do impact independence and health through loss of function and in the activities of daily life, and prevents people to sorry, can you see the presentation? I'm sorry. Can you write it down on the chat? Because someone cannot see it. Okay. Maybe there's something related to the computer. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Thank you, okay. I'm sorry. Okay, let's keep going, because I think everything is working from our side. Yes, maybe you need to use the browser. Okay, let's go. I was talking about falls as one of the major risks for loss of function and preventing people from participating in daily life activities. And we know that it's not a simple question or a simple answer, or what is the reason that older people tend to fall more. There are a lot of different factors that can contribute to the increase of falls in older people. This webinar, I'm going to be focused on the biological aspects related only to the natural aging process. I'm not going to be talking about any disease or any diagnosis, only about the natural aging process. But I wanted also to name some other factors that are also important and for us to know. So other risk factors can be behavioral, such as the use of unsuitable or poorly maintained assisted devices. And of course, older people tend to take more medication, and this is a factor that is also known to contribute to increase in the risk of falling. Social and economic, there's we have this problem of social isolation in the elderly and poor access to healthcare, and other environmental factors also very important. And we as a society need to have more responsibility, which are the ones that are related to accessible buildings, so the entrances, handrails, ramps. So this is something that is within our control, and so we have a big responsibility. And inside of the person's home, so the type of furniture, rugs, well, and weather, icy weather, rainy weather can also increase the risk of fall. Okay, but most of the times it's a mix of all of these factors and the natural aging process, which is something that unfortunately we cannot change with science. So aging, again, is a natural process, and of course it brings a natural decline in various body functions. So among the most alterations in the elderly that contribute to balance deficits and falls, and increasing falls, are these three main groups. So the presence of multisensory deficits, motor decline, and cognitive decline. But let's look into each one with more attention. Okay, so we know that for balance serves two purposes. We have the purpose of postural orientation, so the ability we have to orientate ourselves in space in relationship to our surroundings and our environment. So we need to build an image of ourselves in space so we can then can accurately respond with a motor action, so postural stability, to maintain our center of mass within the base of support. Okay, so we have postural orientation and postural stability, and all of these, behind all of these is a very complex interaction of different systems, sensory motor systems, that are very, very, very complex, and that's why sometimes to identify a balance problem, we need to really understand and assess every component so we can really have an accurate image of a balance problem in a specific person in specific situations. And so with age, we are going to have a decline in, and let's start with postural orientation. We are going to have a decline in every sensory system that contributes to balance. Okay, so we're going to see changes in this vestibular system, changes in the visual system, and changes in the somatosensory system. Okay, let me grab this. starting with the vestibular system, so as we age, there's a decline in the number of hair cells, more predominant. This loss is more predominant in the semicircular canals. And we are going to see also, or most of the times, we also see a decrease in the nerve conductivity, the vestibular nerve conductivity, and overall neuronal degeneration in the vestibular nucleus, in the scarpa ganglion, and some parts of the cerebellum. And so these are the histological changes, but then we also have functional changes. So we often see a reduced optocinetic response and a decrease also in on the reflexes, so the vestibular spinal reflex and the vestibular ocular reflex. Okay. We also see sometimes or often see impaired ocular motor responses. Okay. For the visual field, the first thing that we think about is the loss of visual acuity, but this is something that is easily corrected with glasses. However, other changes are not as easy. So with age, we tend to have a decrease in the size of our vision field with the loss of peripheric vision, decrease in visual contrast, and also changes on depth perception. Okay? And for the somatosensory system, we have a lot of times a decrease in the mechanoreceptor sensitivity, a decrease in proprioceptor sensitivity, and also a decrease in the nerve conductivity. And all of these result in a decrease in the quality and quantity of the sensory input available for postural orientation. Okay. So not only this, so we have a decrease in the quantity and quality of the sensory information that comes from each one of the sensory systems. We also have changes in the organization and the integration of this sensory system. Of this sensory information. It is thought that older people tend to have more difficulties adapting to different environments that vary, that have different environmental with different environmental conditions, different sensory information, conflictive sensory information. So the older adults tend to have more difficult to adapt to these changes, and so not only we have a reduce in quality for the information that is collected by the sensory systems, but also the integration and organization of this. After this, we need a motor output, right? And of course, as we age, we also have constraints or declines in motor function. So the most common thing that we know and that we see is the loss of muscle strength. We can also have the decrease in range of motion and increase in spine rigidity. So we're going to have a motor output that is also going to be compromised by these changes. So we have a less accurate postural orientation and a less effective motor output. Okay, so we already are building up on problems, let's say. We cannot forget about the cognitive and psychological alterations with age. So we often see there's a decrease in spatial memory and spatial orientation. This can also be related to changes of the vestibular system, but also that also can have a big impact on balance and increase on fall risk, and also psychological aspects such as anxiety and fear of fall. So we know that the fear of falling steals precious cognitive resources that for a person that already has maybe some cognitive decline and problems in balance due to all of those alterations can also significantly increase the risk of a fall. Okay. let's move on. So we discussed the micro alterations in the sensory motor systems and cognitive systems in relationship to age, to the aging process. Again, natural aging process. Now let's look into the changes that we see in balance itself. So we need to divide balance in three types of balance. We have the static balance, is the ability to control our center of mass within the base of support during quiet stance. However, we know that there's no real quiet stance, so we sway. Our body behaves like a multi-link pendulum, and we need postural adjustments to react to these small perturbations that are part of even our internal body functions are enough to induce small perturbations. Okay, so we say static is because there are no voluntary motor actions and the person is just standing still. Then we have proactive balance. Proactive balance is the ability to control the center of mass, again, within the base of support, but during a voluntary motor action. Is when we want to grab something, lean on to grab something heavy. This is proactive balance, is the ability to control our center of mass in each position until we reach our goal. And then we have reactive balance. As the name suggests, is the ability to react to sudden perturbations, like a slip or a trip, or when we are standing on a bus and the bus suddenly stops and we have to react to it. And so we are going to see changes in the three types of balance. And we're going to discuss also how we can assess it and what are the most important aspects we can take from the assessments of each one of the the types of balance that are important for a fall risk screening and for fall risk prevention. Okay? So let's start with static balance. Okay, so lifespan changes in postural control show a U-shaped function on regarding postural control, so balance control, with optimal performance in young adults and let's not as good performance in children and in the older people. Okay, but there's a very important difference underlying the postural control in children and in older people. Although they have similar levels, more or less, of postural control, they have there's a very important aspect that can have an impact on fall risk in older people, is this thing of that I already mentioned, that the ability to adapt to changes in the environment and in this case also in the stance position, so more challenging stance position. So older adults, the cost on balance is much higher when we shift sensory conditions, such as when we turn off the lights or when there's visually busy or conflict visual information, when they walk in uneven surfaces. So studies have shown that the cost on balance is much higher in older adults when compared to young children, even though that if we compare them in the normal conditions, they have similar levels of balance control, but when we change and manipulate the environment, they respond in a different way. And this is very important because our daily lives, during our daily lives, we go through different environments with different sensory characteristics. So we can be in a busy street with a lot of busy visual information, or do you know those night trips to the bathroom for the older people? How many of us already have heard maybe from one of our family members that lost balance when they went to the bathroom at night, even with presence lights. And during the day, it's okay. They say that they know the house. They do not have any problems with balance. They do not feel at risk. But then during the night, there's a lot of accidents. So this is important, and this is something that we have to take into account when we want to assess a fall risk and balance. That we need to find out what are the sensory conditions that have a higher cost in balance for that person. So because that is going to be the situation where that person is going to have a higher risk of fall. Okay, and this is just as a static assessment, a static balance. Sorry, age-related balance changes in proactive balance. Okay, so older adults often show a smaller, reduced functional base of support, which means that the ability they have to displace their center of mass towards the limits of the base of support in a voluntary way is reduced. So no longer the ability to transfer and displace the center of mass towards the limit of the base of support, but also the quality of the movement itself. And this is an ability that is fundamental for daily life activities. Even during gaits, we need to be able to shift our weight, our center of mass, in diagonal, front diagonal directions within our base of support. And so this decline can significantly increase the difficulty and risk that is associated with performing daily life activities, so making them more susceptible to falls and losses of balance. It is also known that this influence, because remember, of course, if we lean our body within the base of support towards the limits of our base of support, this is already a more complex postural task, and so we have to allocate more cognitive resources to this. And so when we also are dealing with cognitive decline and fear of falling, this can also highly affect the size of the functional base of support and the quality and the control of the center of mass within the base of within this area that is also known as area of stability. Okay, and this is a very important concept, and is part is part of our daily life activities, and it's something that we also need to look into. And of course, reactive balance. So older people have less efficient reactive postural responses, maybe delayed detection of the perturbation. They take more time to detect something has changed. Multisensory deficits, delayed response initiation, also multisensory deficits, problems in integrating the information, and already motor decline, and problems in the activation of the right muscle synergies to respond to the perturbation. And this is maybe one of this reactive balance is maybe the most relevant one in this case, because more than 50% of falls in older adults happen after an external perturbation. And so it's very important to also look into this to understand if there are declines in reactive balance. Again, I've been already talking about I've been already talking about this, the correlation between cognitive function and balance, but it's also something that it's very important to pay attention. In healthy young adults, postural control is relatively low in attentional demands, so in cognitive demands, but it increases if the cognitive load increases when the postural task complexity also increases. So more complex tasks, more cognitive resources are required, and if we are dealing if we are dealing with a balance problem, simple tasks can already be complex tasks, and so the cognitive load for balance is already going to be increased. And so we have to ask the question, are there enough cognitive resources to respond to this increase? Okay. The answer to this question is in another question, which is what is the cost on balance when a second task is added? And this is something that we can assess. Why is this important? Okay, we can picture an old adult with some changes in balance, already with some problems in balance, going on the streets where the floors are uneven, when there's a lot of cars crossing by, people walking towards. Maybe the person is talking on the phone or talking to the person next to. So our environment has a lot of attention draining situations, and so it's very important for older people for us to understand if there are enough cognitive resources to respond to all of these challenges. And if when a situation where we need to, where the person has to focus on a balance on a balanced task and also on other factors, if the cost on balance is very high or not. And this is where we can identify again specific situations and environments where the person is with an increased risk of fall. At this point, we can already understand why balance assessment should be sought as a biomarker for health in older adults or for health longevity. So unlike disease-specific markers, balance reflects a multi-system integrity, capturing the cumulative effects of aging on different resources, here, all of them, resources that are needed for balance control. So research has shown that poor balance is strongly associated with higher fall risk, frailty, cognitive decline, and even mortality, so making it a powerful indicator of biological aging. So just as grip strength is used to assess muscular function and overall vitality, so balance tests can serve as a non-invasive screening tool for identifying individuals at risk of adverse health outcomes. And this is where posturography analysis can be a very helpful tool, because it enables us to measure balance in an objective way and to identify deficits with more confidence. Okay, so let's talk about how can posturography help us to assess balance and the three types of balance, and what are the main information or the main points that we can understand with posturography analysis through the three types of balance. Okay, so starting with the static balance assessment, so posturography is a routine and detailed objective measurement of balance through the recording of the center of pressure related parameters. So for the person that maybe are not as do not know as much about posturography. So the center of pressure in a quiet stance is we can identify it as the projection of the center of mass on the base of support. And what we measure with posturography is the displacement of the center of pressure on our base of support. And with this, we can understand how much a person sways, how fast a person sways, if it sways more to the right, to the left, in the anteroposterior plane, in the mediolateral plane, but most important, in which situations. So this is what we can do with posturography. We can manipulate the sensory conditions to understand and to measure the cost on balance when we change the lightening, the characteristics of the surface and a stable surface, when we change the stance position, and we can measure with a lot of confidence the performance during each one of these test conditions. So we can understand what are the conditions that really poses higher risks for losing balance. One of the limitations that we have so far with this method is that there are a lot of different studies in the literature that try to identify what are the most sensible parameters to differentiate between fallers and non-fallers, and what are the most sensible conditions to do it. But it's very difficult because the studies are very different from each other. And although there are already some good studies, like the one that I have here, because it's a systematic review with a meta-analysis, I believe that the strength in the posturography analysis is not looking for a specific parameter, but the ability that we have to, by looking into just general posturography resultant parameters, such as, again, the velocity and the displacement, we can understand what are the sensory conditions that are more difficult for a specific person. And for that person, we know what the cost is when the visual information is not accurate or is not available, or when the person, for example, we can also add a cognitive task. We can add a cognitive task and measure a balance response without the cognitive task and with the cognitive task, and understand what is the cost and measure it. And for you to have just an example, this is a posturography report from an 87-year-old woman. The test conditions were comfortable stance, good lightening, and the test time was 30 seconds. And we can look into the stabilograms that show the center of pressure displacement in the mediolateral plane and in the anteroposterior plane. And we can already see multiple peaks, which in reality are the corrective actions that the woman did to try to control their center of mass within the base of support. The magnitude and frequency of these corrections illustrate here the effort needed to maintain balance, and this is in a very controlled environment. Okay, so good lightening and normal and comfortable stance. In contrast, we have the same test conditions, but these are the results from a 34-year-old woman. We see a completely different pattern of body sway. It looks like the person is moving from one equilibrium point to another, not as much doing abrupt postural corrections to try to control the center of mass. And of course, this type of response will naturally require less effort and less energy expenditure. Okay, so this is one next to the other. We are not looking into any parameters, or we're just looking into the stabilograms, and the difference is very obvious. Let's move to the proactive balance assessment with posterography. So we can measure proactive balance with posterography using the limits of stability protocol. Okay, so remember that I said that most this ability to displace the center of mass towards the base of support is very important for daily life activities. Okay, and with this protocol, we can measure how far a person can displace their center of pressure towards. Let's see if I can put the, yeah, okay. Now you can see it. We can measure how far a person can move their center of pressure towards the boundaries of the base of support, but also how well a person controls the movement towards the eighth direction. Okay. And what are the main outcomes, and what can we take from this test? So just for the people that also don't know about this protocol, the measures or the parameters that are measured are the reaction time. So it's the time that it takes for the person to start the movement after the indication to start. The endpoint excursion is the maximum distance the person could reach from the center position to the point that the person reached in the first try. And then the maximum excursion is after performing some correction in the movement, like in velocity or direction, we can go a little bit further away. This is the maximum excursion. Then we also have movement velocity, is the movement velocity, and the direction control, that is very interesting, that measures the amount of movement that happened in the wanted direction. So we measure, if we draw a line from the center position to the target, we measure how much of the movement happened in the planned direction. Okay, and what are the important? What can we conclude from this protocol, and what can we take from this protocol that can help us then understand the risk, the fall risk of an older person? So we can have information regarding the size of the area of stability given by the endpoint excursion and the maximum excursion. So this area that we already know, if it's reduced, it's associated with an increased risk of falling during daily life activities. We can understand some aspects related to the anticipatory postural adjustments if they are prolonged. For example, taking into account the results in the reaction time and movement velocity. So higher reaction times and slower movement velocity can mean that the person needs more time to adjust and to activate the correct postural adjustments to perform the movement. We can understand also how well the person can perform the movement, the quality of movement, so through the direction control and movement velocity. And all of this, again, we can understand if we had a second cognitive task. We can understand cognitive influence, combining so the limits of stability assessment with some cognitive task. Again, we know that as we approach the limits of stability, the limits of our base of support, it means that, or it means no, it requires more cognitive resources, because the complexity of the postural task also increases. In order if in older people, if we are already expecting for them to also have some cognitive declines, maybe we can assess this to have an objective view on the cost of balance in these conditions. Okay, and it's here. it looks weird, the video. I don't know. I had a cool video here, I'm sorry, explaining the reactive responses. So posterography can also be helpful to measure the effectiveness of postural responses, because it can measure the center of pressure resultant parameters, displacement in this case with the stabilogram, in relationship to the scale of the perturbation. So we can understand the timing of activation of the response and the intensity, the scale of the response. We have the blue line is the center of pressure displacement, and the red line is the platform movement. In this case, they are normally, or normally, not normally, but for this assessment, we require a dynamic platform, a dynamic that can induce a perturbation and then can measure the response at the same time. Okay, and that was what the video showed, but I'm sorry, it's not playing. So we know that smaller parameters, center of pressure parameters, are indicative of more stable reactive responses. And again, taking into account that more than half of the falls happen during external perturbations, this is something that is also worth exploring. I already did a webinar about reactive balance assessment and training a few months ago, and it's available on YouTube. You can scan the QR code. I place it there for you if you want, because this is a very hot topic right now, and it has a lot of strong scientific foundations for the use of these methods for fall risk prevention. And so if you want to know a bit more about this, you can go after and watch the webinar on YouTube, where everything is more, it's detailed, explained in a more detailed way. Okay, but so this is what we can measure with the posterography, with reactive balance, is the effectiveness of the responses, and compare it with the perturbation itself. Okay. So I hope I did not make this topic too heavy or hard to digest. My goal was just to transmit you the importance of balance assessment, or using balance as an indicator also of elderly and healthy aging, healthy longevity. And these are my take-home message points. So as we age, and this is just part of the normal natural aging process, we often see multisensory deficits, motor decline, and cognitive changes that can have a big impact on balance control and on the increase of the risk of fall. Balance could be used and should be used as a biomarker for overall health in older adults, because it reflects cumulative effects of aging on multiple body systems, and we can use posterography assessment to measure balance in static, proactive, and reactive ways, so we can detect impairments earlier and can develop personalized interventions that are really focused on the patient, on the older adult. What are the conditions? What about cognitive correlation? So is static, proactive, reactive. I think posterography assessment is really a very powerful tool. There are some improvements to be made. I told you about the heterogeneity of the studies in terms of what are the most sensible center of pressure parameters. But overall, I think it's already outperforming other tests or other methods of assessment of fall, risk, and balance. And it's very important, of course, to prioritize balance assessments if we want to think about quality of life in older people. Okay. So thank you once more for being here with me. I'm very happy to discuss with everyone any aspects of this webinar or other points. If you want, you can reach me by email. So write it down so you don't forget. I'm already at this point now. Write it down, and also if you want to know more about our posterography platform softwares for balance assessment and training, you can reach us by WhatsApp or send us an email to our general email address. It's over here also. You can write it down. And on our YouTube, we already have a big list of webinars with different topics that maybe you also can find it interesting. So thank you again for being here. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you found it useful, and I will see you again on our next webinar. Goodbye.